there's a breath, secret, held by Tibetan monks. Breath that stills the mind in just You'll discover why they've never revealed it to the world. Close your eyes for a second. Feel your breath. Rapid? Superficial? Anxious? That's the breath of the modern world. The breath of a mind that never stops. But what if there was a way to breathe? Simply silence your mind. High in the remote, snow-capped Himalayas, where the thin mountain air is crisp and the profound stillness is almost palpable, a community of Tibetan monks discovered something extraordinary. They discovered that breathing isn't just about oxygen, it's about awareness. It's about connection to something greater. It's about touching that place within you where peace has always resided. My life's work, decades dedicated to understanding consciousness, has led me to this. And what I'm about to share with you ever change how you understand your own breath. Have you noticed how when you're anxious, your breath quickens? How when you're afraid, it gets trapped in your chest? How when you're angry, it becomes heavy and forced? Your breath is a reflection of your inner world. Here's the secret that will change. If the breath reflects the mind, by changing the breath, you change the mind. Tibetan monks discovered this over 1,000 years ago. They realized there's a specific way to breathe that not only calms the body, but literally quiets the mental noise. A breath that creates a state of awareness where the mind simply stops. Imagine for a moment, what would it be like to live 3 minutes without a single distracting thought? 3 minutes where your mind is completely silent. 3 minutes where you finally rest. But there's something you need to understand before we continue. This isn't some common deep breathing technique. It's not like those relaxation exercises everyone teaches. This is something far deeper. It's a breath for awakening. Eckhart Tolle, the spiritual teacher who has touched millions of lives, said something few fully comprehend. He said, "The breath is the bridge between being and non-being." But what does that truly mean? It means there's a point, precisely between the inhale and the exhale, where you aren't breathing, a moment of absolute stillness, a moment where the mind simply can't exist. And it's in that moment that you find who you truly are. Have you noticed it? That instant between breathing in and breathing out, that second of complete void. Monks discovered that this void isn't emptiness, it's absolute wholeness. Let me tell you about something that happened to me that will explain why this breath is so powerful. Sitting at a cafe, lost in thought, worries about the future, resentment from the past, my mind was a constant storm. Suddenly, something made me stop. Something made me notice my breath. In that moment, I simply stopped controlling it. I stopped forcing it. I allowed the breath to breathe itself. You know what happened? For 3 minutes, there wasn't a single thought, only pure presence. It was as if I'd found a secret switch inside me, a switch that completely turned off the mental chatter. But here's where the story gets interesting. When I returned to the world of thoughts, everything had changed. Same problems were there, but I was no longer identified with them. I had found something within me that was greater than any problem. The Tibetan monks call this the breath of fertile emptiness. Empty because the mind stops. Fertile because something much greater is born. Now you might be wondering, how exactly does this breath work? How is it possible that something so simple has such profound power? The answer lies in modern neuroscience. When you breathe in a specific way, your nervous system enters a state called heart-brain coherence. Your heart, your brain, your nervous system, everything comes into perfect harmony. it's not just that. There's something more subtle happening. Something science is only beginning to understand. You breathe consciously. Activate parts of the brain that are normally dormant. Activate what neuroscientists call the default mode network. It's the part of the brain responsible for the sense of being a separate self. And this network quiets. You experience something extraordinary. You experience oneness. That's exactly what the monks discovered. They discovered that conscious breathing is a direct gateway to states of awareness that normally take decades of meditation to achieve. Eckhart Tolle talks about this when he teaches about the space between thoughts. He says there's a space where you can rest between one thought and the next. Mystical breath of the monks is the key to expanding that space. But let me be clear about something important. This isn't a practice to improve your life. This isn't a technique to be more productive or happier or more successful. This is far more radical than that. This is a practice to discover who you are when you remove everything that isn't you. When you remove the thoughts, when you remove the worries, when you remove all the stories you tell yourself, what remains? The monks discovered that what remains is pure awareness. What remains is infinite love. What remains is peace that transcends all understanding. You can touch this in 3 minutes. But here's what nobody tells you about deep spiritual practices. They shake you up. They destabilize everything you thought you knew about yourself. When you experience 3 minutes of absolute mental silence, you don't come back the same. You begin to question, who exactly is having all these thoughts? You begin to realize that there's something within you that observes the thoughts, but isn't the thoughts. The Tibetan monks have a saying, when the breath becomes conscious, the unconscious becomes conscious. That changes everything. Imagine living knowing that within you there is a space that no external circumstance can touch. Space where there is always peace, no matter what is happening in the world around you. Imagine knowing that your true identity isn't your thoughts, isn't your emotions, isn't your circumstances. Something far deeper, something eternal, something that was never born and can never die. This isn't philosophy. This isn't a concept. This is direct experience. And you can have this experience through the oldest and most sacred breath known to humankind. But before we continue, now, I need to warn you about something. Once you discover this space within you, once you touch this peace, you can no longer live unconsciously. You can no longer accept a life where you are constantly identified with thoughts that are not you. It's a blessing and a responsibility. So tell me, are you ready to know the breath that the monks guard as their most sacred treasure? Are you ready for 3 minutes that can change everything you believe about yourself? Because what I'm going to teach you now is not just a technique, it's a doorway. A doorway to dimensions of awareness that you may not even know exist within you. And once you cross that doorway, there's no turning back. There's only awakening. Now, take a deep breath. Feel the air entering your lungs, because what I'm about to reveal is the secret that Tibetan monks have guarded for over 1,000 years. The breath that stills the mind in exactly 3 minutes. But first, let me tell you about Lama Tenzin, a Tibetan monk who spent 60 years of his life studying the mysteries of conscious breathing. When I met him, he was 87 years old, and his eyes had a quality I had never seen before, a quality of complete inner silence. He told me something that changed my life forever. He said, "The West seeks to control the breath. Tibet teaches the breath to control you. Then he smiled. That smile that contained 1,000 years of wisdom, and added, when you stop being the one who breathes and become the breath itself, then you understand the secret of life. Then he taught me. Technique is called the sleeping tiger breath. Tiger because when awakened it is powerful. Sleeping because it works through complete surrender. Here's how it works. And pay attention because every detail matters. First, find a position where your spine is erect. Not forced, erect. As if an invisible string were pulling the top of your head toward the sky. The monks say that this posture connects earth and heaven through you. Close your eyes, but don't close them forcefully. Close them like the petals of a flower that naturally close at dusk. Now comes the most important part. Breath happens in 3 distinct phases. Each phase has its own sacred purpose. Phase 1, the inspiration of emptiness. Inhale through your nose, very slowly, so slowly that someone were looking at you, they would think you're not breathing. As you inhale, imagine that you're inhaling not air, but pure space. Infinite space entering you. But here's the detail that makes all the difference. Don't inhale with your chest, inhale with your belly. Allow the air to descend, like heavy water, to the deepest part of your abdomen. The monks call this breathing with the center of the earth. Feel the air filling your belly first, then rising to your chest, and finally reaching the top of your lungs. Like a gentle wave that goes from the base to the top. 3 layers of breath in a single inhalation. Mentally count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 counts to inhale. Don't force it. If you need 7, or the important thing is the gentleness. It's the awareness that you are nourishing not only the body, but the soul. Phase 2, the pause of eternity. Now comes the deepest secret. After inhaling, stop completely. Don't hold your breath with effort. Simply pause, as if time had stopped. In this pause, something miraculous happens. Nervous system enters a state of total coherence. Heart, your brain, your mind, everything comes into perfect harmony. It's as if your entire being aligns with something much greater. In this pause, don't count, don't think, just allow. Allow there to be a moment where you are doing nothing. A moment where you simply are, where you experience your deepest nature. Monks say that in this pause, you touch eternity, because eternity is not a long time. It is the complete absence of time. It's pure presence, without past, without future, only eternal now. You pay close attention. In this pause, you will notice something extraordinary. You will realize that there is a part of you that was never born and can never die. A part that has always been in perfect peace. Phase 3, the exhalation of release. After the pause, exhale through your mouth, very slowly, as if you were blowing a candle that is meters away. You don't want to extinguish the candle. You just want to make the flame dance. As you exhale, release everything, not just the air. Release the worries, release the tensions, release the very need to be someone. Mentally count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 counts to exhale. The exhalation always longer than the inhalation. And then pause again, a natural pause before the next inhalation. In this second pause, you are not empty. You are full of emptiness. This is one complete cycle. Inhalation, pause. Exhalation, pause. Sleeping tiger awakens. Now, repeat this cycle for exactly 3 minutes. No more, no less. 3 minutes is the time needed for your mind to enter total coherence. But here's what's going to happen, and you need to be prepared. In the first minute, your mind will resist. It will want to speed up your breathing. It will create urgent thoughts. It will try to convince you that you have more important things to do. Your mind will say, "This is nonsense. This doesn't work. You're wasting time." This is normal. It's the mind doing what it has always done. Keep breathing. In the second minute, something changes. The thoughts begin to ocean waves that slowly become calmer. Begin to feel a different quality of awareness. More spacious, more silent. It's as if you were leaving a noisy room and entering a cathedral where every sound has reverence. Your breath begins to find its natural rhythm. Not the rhythm you force, but the rhythm that your soul has always wanted to breathe. And you realize that there's an intelligence in the breath, much wiser than your... And in the third minute, the miracle happens. The mind simply stops. It's not that you stop thinking, it's that you realize that there is something in you that never thought. Something that has always been in perfect silence. Something that is more you than any thought you've ever had. This third minute, you experience what Eckhart Tolle calls being. Not being something, just being. Pure, simple, eternal. When I first did this, something extraordinary happened. End of the 3 minutes, when I opened my eyes, it was like I was seeing the world for the very first time. Colors were vibrant. The sounds were crystal clear. But more than that, I was more present than I had ever been. I understood that I had spent my entire life living in a mental fog. Those 3 minutes were my first experience of a clear sky. But let me tell you about Sarah, a 42-year-old executive who discovered this breath during one of the most difficult times of her life. She was going through a complicated divorce. She had lost her job. She was having constant panic attacks. Her mind was a hurricane of worries, 24 hours a day. She told me she reached the point where she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't even be alone with her own thoughts. Sarah had tried everything: therapy, medication, exercise, guided meditations. Nothing worked, because nothing touched the real root of the problem. Nothing reconnected her with who she truly was, beyond all her problems. When Sarah started practicing the silent breath, something incredible happened. It's not that her problems disappeared, but she found a place within herself that was completely untouched by any problem. In the first week, she managed to sleep a whole night for the first time in months. In the second week, she realized she could observe her anxious thoughts without being overwhelmed by them. And in the third week, something extraordinary. She told me, I was doing the breathing, and suddenly I understood. I understood that all these years, I had been identified with my mind. I thought I was my thoughts. But in that moment of complete silence, I realized that there is something within me that observes the thoughts, but is not the thoughts. And then she added something that gave me goosebumps. For the first time in my life, I understood that my thoughts are not me. And discovering that freed me from a prison that I didn't even know existed. That's the power of conscious breathing. It shows you who you are when you are not your thoughts. Now, there's something very important I need to tell you. This practice is not to be done mechanically. It's not a technique you do while thinking about other things. Each breath needs to be done with reverence, with the awareness that you are participating in something sacred. The monks say, conscious breathing is prayer without words. There's one more thing. After doing the 3 minutes, don't rush off to your activities. Sit for a few more moments. Savor the silence. Allow this quality of presence to stabilize within you. Because here's the real secret that few discover. This state of silent awareness doesn't need to be limited to the 3 minutes of practice. You can carry this quality of presence into your entire life. Imagine being in traffic in the middle of a jam, and instead of getting angry, you simply return to your breath and find peace. Imagine being in an argument with someone you love, and instead of reacting, you find that space of silence and respond with wisdom. Imagine waking up in the morning, and instead of immediately being hijacked by the thoughts of the day, you start with 3 minutes of the silent breath. Carry that quality of awakened presence throughout your day. This is not theory. This is what happens when you practice consistently. You begin to live from that place of silence instead of living from the mental noise. Eckhart Tolle teaches that true meditation doesn't only happen when you are sitting with your eyes closed. True meditation is living with this quality of conscious presence in every moment, and the silent breath gives you direct access to this presence. Imagine what it would be like to live knowing that you can always come home, that no matter how chaotic the world around you is, you always have access to this place of peace. Imagine what it would be like to no longer be a slave to your own thoughts, to know that you can observe them like clouds passing in the sky without identifying with them. This is not imagination. This is real possibility. This is your birthright. But one last thing, something that Lama Tenzin told me on the last day we spent together. I was sitting in silence, looking at the mountains. Suddenly, he turned to me and said, "The West thinks that breathing is for living. Tibet knows that breathing is for awakening." He paused for a long time and added, "But the deepest breath is when you realize that you don't breathe. You are the very breath of life." That moment, I understood something that changed everything. We spend our lives thinking that we are separate beings that breathe. Truth is deeper. We are the very consciousness through which life breathes. When you practice the silent breath, you are remembering this deeper truth. You are reconnecting with who you always were before you forgot. And maybe, just maybe, these 3 minutes of silence are the beginning of you completely remembering who you truly are. The monk's breath is not just a technique, it's an invitation to return home, to return to yourself. And that door is always open. It's always a conscious breath away. So breathe consciously, and discover the miracle that you always were.